Hey guys, Lotus Streams here, come at you with another review, and today I'm gonna review Codex Chaos Space Marines. Because Chaos Space Marines is a pretty big one, and I'll go ahead and have a little look back into the 7th edition, what held them back, and so on. Transition to 8th edition Index, and then Codex, and see what changed, what stuff is new. If there's new models, I'll have a look at them. And then obviously Warlord Traits, Psychic Powers, and whatnot. Although I will put the Legion specific stuff into one single chapter at the end, just so we don't have to switch back and forth, but we know exactly what does it mean if we take the Alpha Legion, what extra options do we have in one go, and we don't have to go all over the place to find them. Alright, let's get started. So CSM in 7th edition had massive point costs, mainly to the fact that it's a very old codex. They got power creeped a little bit, but there's also the addition of marks, which makes the units even more expensive because it adds stats, but adds to the point cost obviously, and then including upgrades, these units got very, very expensive. The entire thing was generally outdated. There were a bunch of rules they were pretty much redundant or only fluff based, and the only thing they got is supplements. So the entire original codex is unchanged for many years, and that led to the thing that they are extremely strong in close combat because their artifacts and whatnot are, although not updated, were really, really strong at the time, and always were actually really, really good. However, in 7th edition, close combat itself was in such a bad spot that the extreme strength there doesn't do anything, in which case it leaves them as a weak army because they still have to pay for a set strength. The variety aspect was really good because CSM players often say that's not the case, but that's not true. You have a lot of options. The only problem is a lot of these options are not viable. That's an entire different thing. They are not a Grey Knight Codex. They have plenty of options in each slot. The lowest would be the fast attack, but even that one has some good options this edition. Alright, they have synergy issues, however, because the entire thing feels evil, but even if you build an entire Khorne or Nurgle army, it doesn't do anything. Marks were never a synergy thing. They were always based on pretty much units. The only thing you have is Mark of Nurgle on one unit, not in the entire detachment. Khorne Demonkin tried to change that, but that was entirely split from the Chaos Space Marine Codex, so we don't count that. In the old Codex itself, there was never that big. We all work together as a thing. We are more seen as a war band that sticks together, and that's it. All right. So when it went to 8th edition and the Index came out, they still had big point cost increases overall because of the vehicles change and whatnot. Monstrous creatures were too strong, which were nerfed and still cost a lot of points. So in the end, they are still way more expensive than other Space Marine equivalents or something like that. And but at least a majority of the rules got updated. So the Chaos Lord now has this rerolling 1 ability and whatnot. So there's a lot of the old clunky stuff is gone, and instead we have a lot of updated rules that give our units a purpose, which is obviously a great stuff. The problem is though they reduced the strength in close combat really, really hard by removing artifacts. There's no artifacts in the Index, and obviously those packed a big punch, and removing those was a big deal because those in combination with the power the Demon Princes had was pretty good. But as monster creatures got nerfed, and in general the stuff you have mostly got less effective because of the missing attack from charging. However, the close combat as a whole is in a much better state than before, which means Raptors get to deep strike and come in and attack right away. You have a very good psychic power that lets you speed across the field. Rhinos are better. So there's a bunch of buffs to close combat in general, which evens this out pretty nicely. And you're just basically missing a lot of stuff that is not included, such as Legion traits and mark synergy still, because everybody now has a marks. There is a system in place that makes your CSM Hereticus status, demons, and mark of chaos. That's the 3 things you have. which will define your strength and your synergy effects, but there weren't any. The index doesn't have any where you would take the mark. It's mostly only a limiting factor. So that's something that's missing. Although the synergy is still better than before, since you have these buffs that you can use for your army, which wasn't a thing at all before. The only thing they could do that was their chaplain with the demagogue ability or something like that. I don't know. Was not really that good though. Alright, so the Chaos Space Marines 8th Edition Codex, however, has 9 psychic powers, so that's 6 more than before. 3 of those are the old ones, 3 of these are the new ones, and 3 of these are specifically for each god, and only for units that take the marks. You also have 6 Warlord Traits for CSM in general, but there's also another 6, so we have 12 total in Legion Warlord Traits, which is also a pretty nice thing to have. Stratagems are a thing now. They exist. They have specific Chaos between stratagems, and we'll have a look at those. And there is new units inside of the Codex, which is basic demon troops. For some reason, Games Workshop decided to add them into your Codex, but it doesn't mean anything at all, pretty much, because the unit entry is unchanged. The point costs got decreased, so I assume this is in preparation for an update for the Demon Codex, so the CSM Codex has the same values. But they do not gain heretic status or anything like that. They are still only demons as vanilla in the Codex with different point values. That's all. They're still in the Codex, that's why I write them down here. And you can take them as troops, but they will break your detachment, so don't think they're Chaos Space Marines. What is actually new is the Exalted Champion. He is a new character that I'll have a look at later, and he's essentially part of the entire synergy thing, and is actually a really, really good addition to the army, I think. Then we lost a bunch of units, especially those that Games Workshop does not have a model of, and that you have to convert, but you remember you still have access to them via the index. As long as they have a different entry and not an updated entry, you can use the ones from the index. There is buffs to Obliterators, Possessed, Barrick Marines, and Icon of Despair, because the Obliterators fire double the shots, which is a big deal, so double the firepower on a unit that is essentially all about the shooting. Possessed have 2 wounds now. Plague Marines have a huge amount of options, probably in preparation for a new kit for them, because there's a bunch of stuff that they couldn't take before and that doesn't even exist in their kit, probably with the Death Guard release, and so on. And the Icon of Despair doubled its range from 3 to 6 inches, which is a good thing, because we have some nice synergy going on in this Codex where we can reduce morale by a lot and try to deal damage that way, which I like. Overall, we have a huge buff for everybody because there's a point cost reduction going on, especially on vehicles like the Defiler, dropped way, way down in base points, also Predators and whatnot. But even Plague Marines and some specialized units have some reduction, and then there's also small points decreases on the Cultists, for example. So the entire thing is better than the index book for sure, because you don't lose anything, you gain something, and you lost a bunch of points, which is good. CSM Army Rules are not as in other armies, because they have some underlying concepts that are not part of the army rules per se. The only thing they actually have is Death to the False Emperor. That's the only thing they have in general going on for them. Which is just on the 6 you get an additional attack if you're attacking Imperial units. This case doesn't do much because you have to get into close combat and it has to be the right faction, otherwise this effect is absolutely irrelevant. So let's not talk about that one. The other ones are much more important. The majority of you guys has the Marks of Chaos, unless they already have a specific mark, which you can choose. And there's also some guys that have the Demon Special Rule. Now, Demon has a different meaning than in the old edition. I'll talk about this one because it has a lot of synergistic effects due to the keyword having a demon in your army. Not about the summoning, not about the Codex demons. This is just because we can use a bunch of abilities because of that keyword. Then Daemonic Ritual is still a thing, already existed in the old index. It's just written down here yet again. And then Legion Traits is something new that they didn't have in the index book, which they had in the 7th edition, where we have a look at what do you have to do in order to get a Legion and not a Chaos Warband random conjugate of Chaos units, which is what you have before. So Daemonic Ritual is actually the exact same. It's just included because of clarity purposes, because all Chaos characters get to do this, but it only was a rule inside of the Demon Codex. Although Chaos Space Marines can use this, you have to remember it enables you to summon demons, and with demons you mean demons that have Daemonic Ritual as a special rule, and your own units, possessed warp talents, demon engines, do not have the Daemonic Ritual special rule, and as such cannot be summoned via Daemonic Ritual. So keep this in mind when you hear guys talking about summoning defilers. That doesn't work. It is impossible rules-wise. So essentially you get to call in some friends from another faction, but you can't use it on your own faction because there's barely anything in there. Marks of Chaos are a new concept from 7th because they do not have any point costs or stats changes as they had before. Instead, you have a keyword that enables you to have synergy effects, such as enables Psychers to swap a power from a respective discipline of Nurgle, Tzeentch, or Slaanesh. It allows you to take artifacts. It allows you to take or use specific stratagems, and you always have the choice between taking no mark, Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, or Slaanesh. It's a free choice. The only thing that limits your choices in marks is unique characters that already have marks or they don't have the rule. And armies of World Eaters or Emperor's Children would require you to take Mark of Khorne and Mark of Slaanesh respectively for every single unit you include in your army if it has the option. Actually pretty simple. The Marks of Chaos are really important because they define how much synergy do you want to have and how much do you want to give up an utility and options from the other gods. That's the idea here. Demon buffs. I'm going to talk a little bit about Chaos Demon Codex, which I already reviewed, because there's a lot of stuff that applies to Chaos Space Marine demon units. Just because you can't summon them doesn't make them no demons. As long as they have the Marks of Chaos special word, which gives them a keyword such as Tzeentch, and they have the demon special rule, then they obviously are Tzeentch demons, and as such are affected by a power that targets Tzeentch demons. Very simple concept. So in this case, there's 2 spells from a Nurgle discipline. The first one adding 1 to our wound rolls, and on the 7 you even get double damage, which is really, really nice, especially with guys that don't deal enough damage usually, but have good armor penetration. Very good one for example, Plague Marines or something like that, where you need to increase your strength. You can also run this on normal on CSM units of Possessed. For example, Possessed would get to wound on 3s most of the time, and then they would wound on 2s or against vehicles or even on 4s, which is really good. And then double damage obviously synergizes very well. The Nurgle Demon unit with next one is just a wound recovery. That's mostly something for a Demon Prince, for example, which is a demonic unit, and also obviously for vehicles. Vehicles have a big wound pool, and using this power each turn can make them much more survivable, especially because they have Infernal Regeneration, which makes this even better. So the fact that the Defiler got cheaper regenerates, and you can target with him with this here if you want to give him the Mark of Nurgle, then you have a very tough vehicle. Slaanesh demons gain a extra pile in attack as if it were the fight phase in the psychic phase, which can be very, very nice. Obviously requires you to be in close combat, but if there's something that you can't just one shot in one round, you actually have the ability to try and finish it off before the next fight phase kicks in. So this is very nice for warp talents. It's good for possessed, and for pretty much any big guy like a demon prince, for example. If he does get unlucky on the damage roll table, which can happen, you have the ability to fight and get clear of that close combat and try to attack something else. Tzeentch Demon unit with an 18 rolls a D, and you roll a D3. You get +1 attack, +1 strength, +1 toughness. Either 3 of these, and obviously for Tzeentch Demons in the Chaos Demons Codex this was pretty meh, but it's amazing to have +1 on the Warp Talents, for example. Even the +1 toughness would be really nice to have. All of these are really good close combat buffs, essentially. And if you take the Mark of Tzeentch, you will have access to these ones. Demon buffs also come from the units, because, for example, Scarbrand buffs all units by giving them immunity to all morale tests, no falling back, neither for you nor the enemy, so nobody can get away from you close combat, and +1 attack for everybody, which obviously buffs the enemy as well. But since you are planning on taking close combat to the enemy and having the better close combat, the attack will be better for you. So if you want to have Scarbrand around, he's a good addition for even for CSM armies, because he buffs you as well. Then all greater demons give you a leadership 10 within 6 inches of them. So makes up for your lack of rerolling morale, because you're a CSM, you don't have the ability. And this obviously fixes all issues. Leadership 10 is great. And having that on a bunch of units against psychic powers, for example, is really, really good. Heralds. All heralds of their respective god increase the strength of units from their same god by 1. Obviously, always a good deal. Increasing from strength 4 to strength 5 is already good. Not so much for possessed, but other units of demon mutilators, for example, can use this pretty well. And you're gonna see heralds are very, very cheap. That's a good thing about them. A great demon is hard to get in here. A herald is not. He's easy to summon. He is not that expensive. He has good war gear on himself. He can hide in some bubble, and he can buff you guys. Why not? The Changeling is a big oversight for most Tzeentch Chaos Specimen players, I assure you, because he gives a aura of -1 to hit for all the Tzeentch demons within 9 inches. So if this guy is around, your stuff in the back, just by having the Mark of Tzeentch, remember, doesn't cost you anything, gives them -1 to hit them. So if you combine this, for example, with Alpha Legion, and you already have the -1 to hit by being 12 inches more away, and then having the Mark of Tzeentch on them, makes them really hard to kill. So this is a nice buff, for example, to Obliterators, because you are already tough to kill, and then the high damage armory that would kill you and would ignore all your 3 wounds, they don't have a bunch of shots, and if you give them -2 to hit you, that's a big deal. So big deal here. The Changeling is not very expensive. He is fine as he is. He has some decent melee capabilities if he is attacked. I like it. Epidemius is a very special one, because essentially you get reroll once or +1 to movement, strength, toughness, and attacks for each destroyed unit that was destroyed by a Nurgle of Demon. Demon of Nurgle, what? Essentially that means the higher your offense is, the more buffs you get, and obviously the CSM Nurgle units are A, faster, B, less expensive, and C, even more choppy than the normal Nurgle demons in the Demons Codex. So actually CSM can profit way more from Epidemius than other ones could, and obviously having additional movement speed, strength, and toughness especially is really, really nice. Even just rerolling once for the Chaos Vehicles is a big deal. The Demon Engines do not have very good ballistic skill. The Mask of Slaanesh is a very easy one. As long as the Mask of Slaanesh is in close combat, the unit she is within 1 inch with is easier to hit. So +1 to hit rolls is really nice. That's something that the CSM cannot give them themselves. And obviously all your special guys hit on 3s usually, and Corn Berserkers hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s are really, really nasty. So these amplifiers matter. And the Mask of Slash is, again, cheap, easy to call in, and has a decent close combat abilities by herself. She doesn't even need that much support. And then last but not least, it's Be'lakor and in general all Demon Princes. Reroll once for all demons within 6 inches. Obviously, the Be'lakor does not care which demon you have, and Demon Princes would only do this for the specific marked version and so on. But remember this, Be'lakor is an option you can have. He can have psychic powers from your discipline as well, which is really weird, but that's how he rolls. And he is a nice addition to all morale-based armies such as Night Lords, for example. Alright, that is all about the demon stuff. And now we go to Legion traits. To get a Legion trait, you need to have an army that is battle forged. It has to consist only of CSM units, and again, demons from the Demon Codex do not count. The only exception to this are Fabius Bile and the Fallen, and Cypher, obviously. Same Legion for all in the same detachment. So you can have 3 detachments with 3 different regions, but they have to be all in one. Otherwise, you don't get the Legion trait. A CSM detachment is a detachment that only consists of CSM, and no matter if Legion or none. And the only thing you gain is OPS for troops. So as long as you have a unit there and the other one does not have this ability, you control the objective. If the enemy has the same ability, the amount counts yet again. There's one big issue with this. There was a change to the matched play rules, which says every single army that is battle forged does have this ability. So that's a big nerf to the actual CSM detachment, because it doesn't do anything, because any detachment would do this, not only the CSM one in this case. But still, we get this, and that's all. There's no other benefit to this than running this. The other ones is all bound to the legions and to the Marks of Chaos. CSM Warlord Traits are the ones for the non-legion specific ones, and any CSM character obviously can take this if he is your Warlord. First one is Eternal Vendetta, reroll wounds versus Space Marine units. I wouldn't take it ever. I mean, yes, against Space Marine units it might be nice, but even then I would take something else probably. Not really that good. Flames of Spite. Each 6+ to wound deals a mortal wound. That's nice. The higher the amount of your attacks, the better. This is actually a valid one if Alpha Legion could take it, but you know, you have to take the specific ones for those. Unholy Fortitude gives you +1 wound and 6+ plus, so feel no pain. And that's a pretty good one because you can take it on a Demon Prince and so on and make it more survivable. The +++ buffs all stack. They are different saves for some reason, so you can add to this and make the unit even tougher. Is a good one, I think, in a general a good option, no matter where. Hatred Incarnate. Reroll wound rolls of 1. Pretty meh. Really, really meh, actually. Unless you have a really, really powerful weapon, the reroll to wound rolls of 1 is not really a big deal. A Lot of Terror is a really interesting one, because you roll an additional dice for any morale test within 6 inches and you keep the highest for him. Now, obviously, this is not a good trait in general, but there's a lot of armies that have low morale and they don't have immunity. And having something like Night Lords, having Lord of Torment, have an Icon of Despair around, can stack the morale malus into really, really low values, and then this additional adds to the morale tests and makes this even better. So this is a good synergistic effect if you want to go with terror tactics. Then this Warlord trait is yours. And the last one is Exalted Champion +1 attack. Again, Depends on what kind of close combat weapon you have, but usually this is not worth anything. Alright, CSM Stratagems. First one is Flak Missile, so you get a rocket launcher, you get +1 to hit if you're attacking a flyer, and you deal D3 mortal wounds if you hit. Can be good, but it's very situational. Fire Frenzy is a stationary Hellbrute, can shoot twice at the closest target. That can be good, that depends on the war gear that the Hellbrute has, but there is Forge World units that have really, really nasty war gear, such as a Leviathan Dreadnought, which counts as a Hellbrute and can profit from this massively. The downside is the closest target thing, because it actually has to be in a position where it can profit from this, and it has to be stationary, so you rely on your enemy to actually make a misstep, and that's never good. So it's a little bit but if you have a Hellbrute, obviously nice to have. Demon Shell. You have a bolt weapon that gets a single shot that deals D3 mortal wounds, but you can't re-roll that one. And if you don't hit, you deal to yourself and take damage. This is actually a pretty clutch one because it is a lot of damage. It is only one single point. And having a random bolt gun flying around, that's actually pretty easy to have. So this can happen where this would be relevant, and I would consider this obviously on a 2+ ballistic skill model. Otherwise, the chances of you dealing damage to yourself are pretty high. Gifts of Chaos is the usual one, which gives you an additional relic, or for 3 points, 2 additional relics, and we have a look at this one once we see what relics we have. Blasphemous Machines is 1 point. Vehicles ignores penalties for moving and advancing. So moving for heavy and advancing for assault weapons. Obviously this is not relevant for Chaos Land Raiders, but this is very relevant for Chaos Predators, because having a Predator is really nice. Less cannons are pretty good this edition, and you can hide it far in the back or in a vehicle where it doesn't have line of sight, then move, still shoot, and don't have to take the penalty of -1 to hit rolls with your expensive weaponry. So that's one where I could see it right away. And then all the Demon Forge units that you have all essentially can move, want to move, have close combat capabilities, but also carry heavy weapons. And they might like this if they wanted to have the extra firepower, and if you want to take the last cannon on a Defiler, on a Forge Fiend, something like this. Then the Chaos Boon. The Chaos Boon is a 2d6 table and has the usual results, so you can go into a Spawn Hood and you can go into Demon Hood, but the funny thing is both of these options do not cost you any points, which is good, because otherwise it would be utterly useless. The problem is still I wouldn't take it because it is random, so there's only 12 results now, but still you have to get the right result, otherwise it's not worth it. And there's still stuff like +6 to your ranged weapon, which might be very, very bad. But there's also stuff like +1 toughness, so it can be worth it. Depends on how much stratagems you actually have access to. The next one is a very general good one, which is Veterans of the Long War. Finally a good rule, because it is a stratagem that costs you 1, and an infantry or biker units gets +1 to wound rolls for 1 phase. So that includes shooting and close combat. Why not? That's good. That's always something that is nice to have, especially if you're shooting at vehicles, but usually you can only wound them on 3s, so now I have a 2+ to wound with Lafs cannons. Sounds good. Really good one to have for bikers as well, because they have a lot of firepower on their combi weapons, for example. Depends on what you want to run, but it's a very good one in all situations. Free of Corn. Biggest thing straight away, 3. It costs you 3 points, very, very expensive. It's only for Khorne infantry and bikers, and they get to fight again at the end of the fight phase. This is nothing like what the Khorne berserkers have, because the Khorne berserkers get to fight before the enemy gets to swing twice if they charged. In this case, you have to your opponent does his attacks and then you get to attack back. So the best situation obviously to use this is against big targets. You're in close combat with a Land Raider. You're in close combat with a Imperial Knight or something, and he didn't do enough losses to you, but you need to get rid of him. This obviously is a stratagem that can pull a big punch if you have something in close combat that deals a lot of damage, such as Mutilators and Terminators, the big guys. This can be good, but it is very expensive, so the situation has to be right, otherwise it is just not worth it. That's all there is to it. Grandfather's Blessing is 2 points. Nurgle infantry or bikers regain D3 wounds or regain a model with 1 wound. Obviously, this is good for obliterators, for mutilators, for the big guys that come back and immediately get additional 4 shots before just being there. This is also useful for characters in case you don't want to lose them and they might be dying pretty soon. Also synergistic effect obviously with Pheno Pain units and so on, because you increase the movement pool even though they only might have 6 or 5. But then again, it's pretty expensive, so don't overuse it. It is good, but it is situational. Endless Cacophony, 2 points. Slanesh infantry or biker unit shoots again at the end of the shooting phase. Obviously good with Noise Marines, especially if they have the Sonic Blasters, Havocs, even bikers because of the combi weapons. And it has to be very effective because, I mean, having guys in close combat usually means you have big stuff on the board that can deal a lot of damage. Shooting only if you gear up for it. So if you're running a Slanesh-based army, you might want to have a squad that can profit from this very well, because then you might be able to use this very, very well. I mean, 2 rounds of Havoc, last cannon fire actually hurt a lot, especially if you buff them with something else that allows them to reroll hits of any sorts. The Great Sorcerer is just 1 point and it casts 1 additional psychic power at the end of the psychic phase. Just good. Plain good. Your psychic powers are actually really, really decent. You can't cast them all. Your Sorcerer can know a bunch of them, but there's also one you get an addition, which is Smite, so you can never cast it. For 1 point, if you really need that one guy to die, or you need to speak that spell for whatever reason, the Great Sorcerer is a good one. Tide of Traitors. Very interesting one, and this is actually one of the things that I like, because it makes Chaos Cultists more interesting. This means at the end of the movement phase, you pick a Chaos Cultist unit, you remove them from the table, you reset its models to the value that you started with, so you're reviving every single model and weaponry, and then you set them up within 6 inches of a table edge, more than 9 inches away from an enemy model. Now, obviously, you know there's objective secure on your cultists, and you also can make them rather survivable thanks to the psychic cheese that you have, and you can protect the sorcerer or whatever. And now you can also teleport them and regain wounds. That's good. You can have, if you're running cultists, this is a very good one to have, and you might be running cultists just because you have to have some sort of objective holding capabilities in a competitive environment, at least. So it can be good. I like the option. Linebreaker, Bombardment, and Killshot I don't have to review because it's the exact same as with the Space Marine Codex. You gain additional benefits for having 3 Vindicators / Predators around. The Predator one is a little bit more relevant to you, but other than this, unchanged. Demon Forge is something special for you because it has only 1 charge, really nice, and reroll all failed hit and wound rolls with CSM Demon Vehicle for 1 phase. That's nice. It's really, really nice. It's good for something like a Forge Fiend, for example, because they have horrible ballistic skill. More Fiends also horrible weapon skill. Rerolling this stuff is really good because their claws and everything have good damage output, and rerolling wounds and hits will amplify that power level much more than you would expect. They are one of the guys that really, really need buffs in order to work well. Otherwise, they are not as effective as they could be. So Demon Forge, good one. Cheap and effective. And then last one is a Chaos Familiar. Chaos Familiar replaces a psychic power from the Dark Hereticus discipline while within the game. Very, very situational, because the option is there, but most likely you will have a bunch of powers, and this might be something when you guy that has warp time, for example, is out of range or he dies, and you really, really need that warp time. Then you can change that one and bring it in. Your psychic powers are actually relevant enough for me to consider this a good stratagem, and that means something. They are good enough to spend a point here and say that. But then again, the Great Sorcerer is still an option you might have here, although the Great Sorcerer is only for Tzeentch. So in this case, the Chaos Familiar can actually do something for you if you don't have any Tzeentch units. Alright, talking about the Psychic. CSM Dark Hereticus discipline is what you have, and there's 6 in this discipline. Infernal Gaze is Warp Charge 5. An enemy within 18 suffers a mortal wound for each 4+ on a roll of 3d6. Which sounds very similar to Smite, but it's not, because Smite auto-targets, and this one does not. So we have free target choice. Whatever you want to target, you can target it, even characters. So this is better than Smite. Straight up. Death Hex is Warp Charge 8. Enemy within 12 inches cannot take any invuln saves. Awesome. Why? There's a bunch of stuff in your codex that allows you to have access to high AP values, all your artifacts, all your specialized units, but you don't have much in terms of mortal wounds and dealing them to the enemy. So removing invuln saves obviously will do a lot for you, in case you want to buff that Mauler Fiend into uselessfulness and not use all your weapons onto a Wraith unit with a 3+ invuln save, or a Hammernator, or whatever you want to. Your AP does not work unless you can remove those, and this one is actually a really, really powerful one, because it can help you with that, and you have good tools to deal with everything else. High saves, high armor saves are not an issue for you. Invulnerable saves are Gift of Chaos, 6 charges, so pretty easy to get, I think. So on average you will get it. Enemy model within 6 inches, so free target choice. D6, and if the result is higher than its toughness, D3 plus D3 mortal wounds. Hallelujah. This is obviously made to kill infantry and characters, because obviously a toughness value on a vehicle will be 7 or higher, so you can't do anything there. But imagine a solitaire with his 3+ invuln save, being annoying and everything. He's gonna hate this power, because it's gonna ignore him. It works on a 4+. You can reroll this with a stratagem if it doesn't work, and 3+ D3 mortal wounds will most likely take something out immediately. So very powerful single target damage spell. Prescience is 7, so average. CSM with an 18 gains +1 to hit. Great one for Havocs, for Predators, for synergistic effects with Slanesh stratagem, for example. Just in general good. So you either have the high quality shots, or you have the amount of shots. So a huge group of CSM or Noise Marines might also do the job. And it even might work with cultists. Talking about cultists, Diabolic Strength, Watch Charge 6. CSM models within 12 gains +2 strength and +1 attack. The problem is it says model, so this doesn't work for cultists, so don't be fooled. The Diabolic Strength is something that is meant to buff Demon Princes and the like into dealing better with vehicles, essentially. Vehicles, a monstrous creature. This is what this addresses, because they have strength 7 or strength 6 most likely, and they need 8 or 9 if they want to wound something on 3s. Also works for Chaos Lords and such, but they only go up to strength 6, so that would only work against toughness 5 targets, although the +1 attack will be useful most of the time. And then the last one is the strongest one, obviously, Warp Time 6, so easy to get. A CSM unit within 3 inches moved as if it was the movement phase. Awesome ability. allows you to boost forward with your Rhino or whatever you want. Demon Princess, Helldrake, moving 60, something super weird. This is where the money is at. If you want to have a big alpha strike, warp time is your friend. You have to have a psych around with warp time. Even a army that would go World Eaters would still want to have this power. Awesome discipline in general, I think. Then the Mark of Chaos, psychic powers. So you only have access to these if you have a Psyker that is Tzeentch, Nurgle, or Slaanesh, and you can only target stuff from said marks. So first one is Weaver of Fate. It's a 6, range 18, such as all of these. A unit within 18 gains a 5++, or +1 to their ++ saves that already exists. This is obviously very relevant for Land Raiders that do not have any inborn saves. This is relevant for all other vehicles that are not Demon Forge. And +1 to inborn saves might be very useful for things as Abaddon, who gets to have a 3+ with this, or even Terminators if you want to, or other demon units. Although if you're looking for maximum survivability, you might most likely will be better off with the other two options, because Nurgle gets -1 to hit in all phases actually. So in this case, if you already have a pre-existing inborn save, you might want to have the Miasma of Pestilence instead, because it will increase your survivability better than the +1 inborn save, reducing all the damage before it even comes in. Delightful Agonies is a 5+ Pheno Pain, which stacks with all other forms of Pheno Pain, so you can have multiple saves of these, which is really, really powerful, and is probably a better option on Demon Forge engines, because you have the 5+ involved with the Demon Special Rule and the 5+ from this one, making them as Slaanesh units a little bit better. So all in all of these are very survivability increasing effects, and depending on what unit you want to buff, remember, do you have an inward save, yes or no? Then Weaver of Fate might be okay. Miasma of Pestilence is good in general, or if you already have pre-existing strong saves, and Delightful Agonies is the one if you have a inborn save already, but you need more survivability. Alright. CSM Relics. Talisman of Burning Blood, my favorite one from the last edition, only for Khorne members, obviously. Advance and charging is now a thing, and you can also reroll the charge distance. Obviously, this is great stuff for fast-moving units as Bikes, Demon Princes, and the like. Very powerful indeed, because you can boost your Warlord or your random character forward very, very far. Nice thing to have. Eye of Tzeentch, only for Tzeentch obviously, +1 to smite tests. In all honesty, a bad relic. It's only 2 smite tests, although you have a very good power choice of powers in your Hereticus discipline. It doesn't apply to them because it's only smite. So I wouldn't take this ever, pretty much, even if I had Tzeentch. Intoxicating Elixir is the same deal. It's +1 strength, +1 attack, which is okay, but not a big deal most of the time. It's Slaanesh only, so I would take it if I can't take any other artifact, which might happen, because you have Slaanesh. Emperor's Children, for example, you don't want the Emperor's Children, or you can't take it because you're a Demon Prince and you don't have a bolt pistol, then you might take the Intoxicating Elixir. So don't rule it out entirely, it might be your only option. Pus Cleaver is a Nurgle power sword. Strength user, AP2, D3 damage, 2+ to wound except vehicles. Pretty good. It's better than a normal power sword, and obviously does deal some good damage too. The Axe of Blind Fury is a Khorne power axe, and essentially makes you Khan, because you get +3 to your strength, AP, and D3 damage, which is obviously a great profile, better than a power fist almost. And but the problem is, once the hit cannot be rerolled, and instead hit friendly units. So you have to be alone, otherwise you will start chopping your your buddies apart, which is not a good thing because the Exo Blind View does a very good job at killing your own models as well. So if you want to go a little bit more safe, you might run with the Black Mace, which is a power more. Also strength +3, only AP2, but 2 damaged flat, which is still on average the same, and D6 for each slain model. So if you have a lot of attacks, this is better. And on a roll of 6, the unit suffers a mortal wound. So great stuff. As long as you keep killing stuff, you might have a chance of dealing more damage, and the weapon itself is already very powerful, and it is not very expensive, honestly. A power maul is no points at all. Bad thing here, and keep this in mind, 7th edition had demon princes running with artifacts everywhere. This edition, as you can see, they can barely take anything. Why? Because you have to have a power sword option in order to take a power sword. So everything that you see here is not applicable to demon princes because they do not have access to said weapons. If it says something like the Talisman of Burning Blood, however, where it doesn't replace anything, you can take them on demon princes, for example. Then the Murder Sword is a power sword, and it is truly a power sword because this is strength +1, which is better, and AP 4 instead of 3. But other than this, 1 damage. And the only thing it does is you nominate a character target, and that takes mortal wounds upon hits instead of the normal damage. Not in addition, this is instead. I'm pretty sure the Murder Sword is not good. I mean, it was very cool in the last edition, but this one, it is you're paying for a power sword that barely does more, and I would take the Black Mace most likely over this any day, because it will deal more damage on average, pretty much. Alright, that is all the relics. Everything else is Legion specific, so it will not be listed here, it will be listed in the Legions. Alright, there's a new unit in the house. It's the Exalted Champion. He was overseen by majority of CSM players complaining they don't have any new models. This is not a old model, this is a new one. It was not part of the index or anything I remember. He has movement 6, weapon skill 2, burst skill 3, strength 4, toughness 4, 4 wounds, 4 attacks. Very choppy, very good profile for close combat, and other than this, leadership 8, 3+ save, he's very, very basic. He has Dash to the False Emperor, which is okay. He has for the Dark Rolls, reroll hits against characters, which is again situational and as such okay. But he has Aspire to Glory, which is reroll wound rolls for Legion units within 6 inches, and that's awesome. Rerolling wounds is always a good trait. Only works for close combat, so keep this in mind. But if you get into close combat and this guy is around, he will do great work. This is actually better than rerolling hits even, because rerolling hits is actually something that your Chaos Lords have access to, and those are good units in general anyway. So this guy buffs not only the guy that's already good, which is your Chaos Lord, but he's also very nice in combination with your other guys. And obviously deals a good amount of damage himself because he has a bullpuster and chainsword, has access to all melee weapons and pistols, and he can obviously take relics as a budget Chaos Lord that costs 4 points less than him, but still does a good amount of work in terms of buffing units. I like it. The only issue about him is, obviously, that he doesn't have any mobility options yet, and he is required to have a Rhino, pretty much. Otherwise you can't get him to the front, which is why his aura ability can be as strong, because it's harder to get him where he needs to be. Chaos Lords can be catapulted across the entire map easily. So if you want him at the front, take your Psyker, move that Rhino twice the turn and advance twice, and then the Exalted Champion will be in close combat with his bodies and will be buffing up your close combat pretty nicely. Renegade Chapters. We now go to the actual tactics, to the Alpha Legions, to all the new stuff that was not in the last index book. The Renegade Chapters are Renegade Chapters, so they don't have any specific access to Veterans of the Long War, for example, which is only for the old guys, obviously, because the Renegade Chapters might not even be any veterans at all. They might be new CSM. But they gain advance and charge instead of nothing. So awesome. Crimson Slaughter is not a part of the CSM anymore, and as such, they will use this. The Red Corsairs will use this, or your random made-up chapters can take this, and it's a very good trait. You're all Gene Stealers now, essentially. Very good with bikers, so you can use this to make an army of a White Scars equivalent, which I really like because that's something that does not exist at the moment. But bikers getting a guaranteed advance move and then be able to move up 14, move 6, and then charge is actually huge. You can get across the map really, really quickly, and together with your psychic support, you might actually be able to move 40 and still be able to charge. And that is a big, big number, considering your guys are essentially made to be in close combat. So this is good all around, and I think is all they need. They don't get any other benefits other than this, but it's already something I would consider very, very nice to have, other than nothing, which is what your options were before. Alright, Night Lords. Night Lords are one of my favorite chapters this edition because they actually have some useful traits. They all were about terror tactics and fear and whatnot, but fear was utterly useless last edition because the majority of the armies were fearless, or had some sort of mechanic that circumvented this. But now the ability means for each unit of Night Lords that is a infantry, bike, or Hellbrute, that's the only thing that gave the chapter tactics, or whatever you want to call them. If you have 3 of them around, the enemy gets -3 to the leadership. If you have 2 around, 2, and so on. It's kept at 3 and is always range 6. But obviously, if you can take a big force and deliver a good punch, and they are Night Lords, they will break the enemy much more easily. And models that run away do not get Feel No Pain, do not get to reanimate. Models that fall back are actually dead, like as in absolutely dead. So as long as they don't have a counter ability, this is going to be very, very good because it stacks with the Icon of Despair, it stacks with Bellacor's Lord of Torment, it stacks with psychic support and whatnot. So you have a good amount of options now to reduce leadership and use fear and terror as your form of damage, which I really like because that's all the Night Lords had. This is essentially what they all waited for. It might be the first edition where this works. Bonus points for using Raptors because it's not only fluffy, but they also have the -1 leadership if they attack. Really nice. Alright, in Midnight Clad is 1 charge only, -1 to hit an infantry unit in the shooting phase. Good stuff. So -1 to hit a unit is really good because you obviously might fail some charges, but when you come in from deep strike, or you have a biker unit that needs to go up the field, but then your other guys are lagging behind, and the only option is to boost them forward and hope they survive. -1 to hit them makes them actually much more survivable than the bikes will probably be. And stacks really nicely with the Zinch buff, stacks really nicely with the Changeling buff, and can make some really, really nasty combinations of, for example, Protecting Obliterators, because that's a -3 to hit right here. The Stratagem, Psychic Power, and the Changeling. Warlord Trait. Once per battle round, you can reroll a single hit, wound, damage, save, charge, or advance roll, and that is a lot of options. I really, really like this Warlord trait, although I do not like Warlord traits that only buff the Warlord most of the time. But a Night Lord Warlord is very, very likely to have a jump pack and the claws, as per Fluff says, and as per is effective on him. And rerolling a single die in a charge is a good thing. Advancing is also a very, very good one because you have to get across the field pretty fast. Everything here works, even because it says once per battle round, so you can use it to reroll your save. And it is a Warlord trait, right? So you can use this in addition to using your Stratagem, and you don't have to waste Stratagem points of keeping your Warlord alive, so it makes him more of a one-man army. Especially because we have the relic. The specific relic is the Claws of the Black Hunt, which is 2 lightning claws, which is rather expensive for a relic, because most of these don't cost much. But you gain +1 strength, you gain +1 AP over normal lightning claws, and you get D3 instead of 1 damage. While not losing anything, you still get your reroll to wounds, and you get the +1 attack for having 2 lightning claws. So nice stuff. Good in combination with the first one, the second one, and the third one, making your Warlord actually really, really annoying to deal with, and even on normal characters might be pretty nice. Obviously not a good synergy with the new character, but with everyone else, it is. Alright, all in all, I would say good one. I like the Night Lords. I like the stuff they have. It seems all to be coming into effect rather quickly, which I like, and is not as situational as you might think. Alright, Black Legion, +1 leadership, which is good, because you don't have any morale benefits so far. And then a very special one. Advancing turns rapid fire weapons into assault weapons. Very interesting one, because obviously that means you always get to use your extra distance moving forward. So you're still expected to shoot, since it's an assault weapon. And moving your bikers, for example, up the field, because they are part of the Legion traits, because it's infantry, those, and hellbrutes. Obviously you have a huge threat range suddenly, because your combi bolt guns are rapid fire 2, you move 20 with your additional advance, and then you are still able to shoot with your assault weapons at full power as if nothing happened. That's good stuff. I mean, what else would you like? Essentially gives you additional movement for suffering no consequences for shooting pretty much ever, because usually you wouldn't get anything instead of. But I like it. It's okay. Their stratagem is Let the Galaxy Burn. It's 1 charge. Reroll once for everything or everything to hit. Depends if you are a CSM standard unit, you get everything, and if you're a Havoc or a Chosen Squad, for example, you only reroll once. Obviously good synergy with the normal CSM, although I would not see any reason to take them. But maybe with the objective secure you might be able to get away with that, and obviously synergizes with their general trait as well, because you have the rapid fire weapons and you want to move forward and you want to reroll and you have more chances to get to use this. But still, I would probably still just use the Veterans of the Long War, because that will deal more damage overall and will be better for everything except normal Chaos Space Marines maybe. Alright, the Warlord trait of a Black Legion Warlord is units within 6 inches trigger this to the False Emperor on a 5+. That's bad. Like really bad. That's something that Abaddon has to have, by the way, because he is a unique character. But no, I wouldn't ever take this if I had the chance. I wouldn't make my Black Legion chief the Warlord ever, just to circumvent this. And then the relic is the Eye of Night, which, by the way, was one of the worst relics Games Workshop ever designed in the last edition, and it is still. Because it's once per battle, instead of shooting on a 2+, a vehicle suffers D3 mortal wounds. Now obviously you can just point your finger at a vehicle and deal wounds to it, but on the off chance that you just might deal just 1, and you might miss, and you can only do it once per battle, and it fills your relic slot, which you only have 1 of, and only 1 access into the entire army, unless you invest into stratagem points. So no thanks. I would rather not take it. All in all, I think it's a 50-50. The first 2 ones are definitely ones that it can use, and the other 2 ones are just bad. Straight up bad. Emperor's Children. Emperor's Children have the Legion trait of always fighting first in close combat unless the enemy has the same ability, blah 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 blah. They have the typical Slanesh close combat buff, which is actually a really good one, considering you have good close combat units, you have good synergy, and so on. And Emperor's Children obviously are most of the time buffed in close combat with their other abilities as well, which is the Stratagem, for example. Excess of Violence, 1 point, generate additional attacks for every single model slain with the same weapon you just attacked with. So that's awesome. As long as you keep killing those Homogons, you get more attacks. And obviously the attacks cannot generate new attacks, but having this in combination with the first one, for example, makes these guys really scary even if they get charged, because you always have this ability active. The Warlord trait is +1 attack for each missing HP up to 3 attacks. Very situational. I mean, you have to get into close combat to make use of this. If you make use of this, then only when you have a very good weapon. So we have to look out for what weapons do the Emperor's Gen have access to. For example, they have the Black Mace. But if this is on the Demon Prince, for example, might actually deal a ton of damage, because just him missing 3 wounds doesn't make him die instantly, and he will still get to attack with his very, very powerful war gear if you choose to give him one. So that Warlord trait can work out pretty nicely on a Demon Prince. On other models, maybe not so much. Their relic is the Bliss Giver, which is a bolt pistol, so very limited access, because you don't want to have your bolt pistol. Range 6, Assault D6, Strength User, AP 1, Damage 1, is used as a pistol, although it is Assault D6. And characters that take wound from this take mortal wounds on a 6+, in addition to the normal stuff. I wouldn't ever take it. I would rather have the Black Mace as something useful than the slightly better bolt pistol. I don't think it's a good option at all. So all in all, we have a bunch of buffs for close combat, and in addition, obviously the Cacophony Stratagem, but that's the only shooty one. The rest is pretty much close combat goodness. World Eaters. The Legion trait is very simple. When you charge, you get +1 attack. Good stuff. You want to charge anyway. The icon of Khorne lets you reroll charge distances anyway. That's not something you would need. All you guys have to be Khorne, so they can take it. And obviously this is a great synergy with Khorne Berserkers, because you get to attack again. So the Khorne Berserker champion now gets to attack 3 times, now 4 times, with a buff probably 5 times. And if he has a Lightning Claw, dual Lightning Claw set up 6 times, twice. So a guy can put up to 12 Lightning Claws out if he charges in a World Eater army. They're talking about efficiency right there. So if these guys get in there, they have a good chance of dealing a whole bunch of damage. Their Stratagem is Scorn of Sorcery. You have a 4+ Deny the Witch on your guys. I mean, why not? Because you don't have any Psychers. There's very nasty psychic powers over there, I can tell you. You will want to deny the Grey Knight powers, otherwise you will have big problems after a while. And World Eaters do not have access to this, so it feels like a wasted one, but in fact you need some sort of psychic shenanigan counterplay. The Warlord trait is + strength and +1 attack for each character, monster, or titanic kill. Although these ones always look pretty nice on paper, you don't have enough time usually. It's not very likely you're going to make that first turn charge. If you do, this might work out, because after turn 2 you might be able to have 2 stacks on this, which would make a difference. The good thing about this is, though, most Chaos Lords and characters are strength 4, so going to strength 5 is a big deal. And additional attacks is great stuff in case you have other relics on you that will increase your damage output, such as the Exalted Blind Fury. Khan obviously has to have this Warlord trait. And he likes it, because he's all about those killing. Alright. The relic is the Brass Collar of Borgaster, which is a Deny the Witch again. But if successful, the caster suffers Perils of the Warp immediately. And that is nice. That is actually really, really nice, because the Perils of the Warp hurts. It's mortal wounds. And the only downside of this over the Stratagem is it's not on a 4+. The Scorn of Sorcery is a much better deny than the Brass Collar, because you have to beat the warp charge that your opponent has, which is a 7 on average and an 8 if it's a Grey Knight. So denying is easier with the stratagem, but then again you're paying points, and the Brass Collar of Borgastad always works for free. Would I take it? Probably not. Why? Because there is better slots for the relic slot. That's all I would say about this. Although I would not argue it's a bad option. It's just in the wrong spot. That's the right word, maybe. Iron Warriors. Iron Warriors have a Legion trait that looks very similar to a very shitty one, which is ignore cover saves and reroll wounds against buildings, which is exactly what Imperial Fists have, which is terrible. Doesn't do much most of the time, because cover saves are much harder to get this edition. They don't do much, and buildings pretty much never played, so rerolling wounds against those is useless in 99% of my 100% of my games. Actually, 100% is the right word, not 99. The stratagem is Iron Within, Iron Without, which is 1 point, and you gain a 6+++ for 1 phase, which is essentially what the Iron Warriors like on tanks and the like, because it's harder to get in one saves on those, and an additional save can't go wrong there. Other than this, it's pretty meh. It's 1 point. Most likely you have better options or better psychic powers to deal with this. So this is not something I would take a Iron Warrior detachment for. The Warlord trait is units within 6 auto-pass moral tests, which is situational. Depends if you're running a very squishy army, might be useful, if not so much. Basically useless for everything that is a vehicle and characters and single target. And but then finally we get to a point where I get to talk a little bit more positively. Fresh Metal Exoskeleton, save 2+ and regain a wound each turn. Great stuff. It's unlimited. You can take it on any character, even a Demon Prince, because it doesn't replace anything. It doesn't have any costs. You like that 2+ save, and regaining wounds on such big models and characters is a good deal. I like it. It's a very good relic and has enough power to deal with the lack of a Black Mace or whatever, because you can take it on models that can't even take the Black Mace in the first place. Good option, and probably the best one about the Iron Warriors in general. Alright, Alpha Legion. Alpha Legion has a Legion trait of -1 to hit rolls if more than 12 away for enemy models. Awesome. Increases your survivability a tremendous amount, just before the fact that it does exist. Forward Operatives is also really, really good stratagem. 1 single use. Infantry unit infiltrates before the first turn more than 9 inches away from enemy models, and it is before the first turn, so you still have your movement phase. You can come closer, you get into melter range, you get into flamer range, you get into psychic power range, you get into charge range. Best one ever. So essentially they are the exact same as Raven Guard, and the Raven Guard one is also really good, except Alpha Legion has more access to stronger and cheaper close combat units than the Raven Guard has, which makes this even better, even in comparison and having the same. The Warlord trait is, as always, awesome, and it is as I am Alpharius. You generate a random Warlord trait at the beginning of the game, and each time one of your characters die, you regenerate a new one for a new character and nominate this one the Warlord. And the enemy can only kill the Warlord and get the tactical objective and the that is good stuff for the demons. That's the way to bring in that greater demon. Really fluffy too, because word bearers are supposed to bring in demons more easily than other ones. So really good one, but it's still word bearers. They're not very good in general, but it's a good one if you want to ally in CSM units from their codex to summon in units for the demon army. That's where the strength of this stratagem lies, really. The Warlord trait is +3 to range from aura abilities, But the CSM Codex does not have any broken, super strong aura abilities that I want to have increased. That's the one issue. Maybe the new one, maybe on a Chaos Lord, but rerolling everything is something else than rerolling once. The rerolling wounds rolls with a 9 seems okay, but even then it's a Warlord trait that is pretty could be better, I think. And then the Relic is essentially bad because it's a power maul. Strength +2, AP2, damage D3, reroll wounds against Imperium, which is very, very situational. Most of the time, not worth it, and I would rather have any other relic than this. I would have the Black Mace if I have access to a power maul and take that one and punch a bunch of people, no matter if they are Imperium or not. Alright, so I think pretty bad news for Wordbearer players. It sucks. The only stratagem use you have is for a different army. That's how I would sum it up. And that's it. There is nothing else remaining here. Just let me say the concept is really interesting. I think we have a lot of synergistic effects. We have good ways of getting forward. We have a good way of mixing Legion styles, of moving forward really fast. Add a Renegade Chapter to move forward with bikes. Drop in some Night Lord Raptors. And then, I don't know what. Let's just take a Wordbearer to summon in some demons and help me out in close combat with my warp talents. Something like this. It could work. I don't know if it will work, as the codec is not out long enough to make any power level decisions, but there is a bunch of good ones in here, and the entire thing just got cheaper. So I think the codex is obviously a huge improvement over the index, and there's a lot of rules in there where I would say those sucked for years and years, such as Veterans of the Long War, and finally this awesome ability and the fluff name and so on does something, which is +1 to wound rolls, which is great. I mean, what else would you want? It's both shooting and the normal phase. I like it. And they did that with a lot of stuff. And then you also have finally your demon engines actually get to synergize with demons, which is also funny. So if you want to, you could actually play CSM as an ally to an demon army where you have the buffing units anyway, and help them out that way, and have you guys as the big punchy units and as a alternative to a soul grinder, pretty much, because that's the only thing that the demons have in their own demon forge in terms of support. So that's interesting. I think really Alpha Legion players probably have the best options here, playing big infiltration armies. Because the other legions do not really have anything that promotes a certain playstyle. Yes, the Emperor's Children get better if they get into close combat, but if they get in close combat, I would rather have the World Eaters than them. So that's a little bit of unbalancing between the factions, and I would love to have an update on this once where Game Structure realizes that ignoring cover and rerolling wounds against buildings is not as good as getting -1 to hit for the entire army if it's more than 12 inches away. There's just not nowhere that this is comparable. That's something I want them to update, just to make the power level in general between the choices you have a little bit more equal. I would like that, because the last edition of the Iron Warriors wasn't nearly as bad. You had access to troops as obliterators and whatnot, and that's all no option anymore. So we will see about it. Really interested to see how the mark system turns out, if people will go for monogod lists or if they actually will mix and match and do the power gaming aspect of the system, which you certainly can do. There is no limiting factor here, unless you're taking your Emperor's Children or World Eater detachment. But even then, you could just take a tiny detachment of those and then add the other god support into different detachments. So there's options here, easy to build detachments, options that actually got a lot cheaper, so you can finally run it to Filer and see if it actually can work out. And maybe it works out. I don't know. We will see. Alright, that's it for me. I'll answer some questions and whatnot, but so far that's it for my side in the presentation. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like. If you have questions, suggestions, leave a comment, and obviously happy wargaming.